So Senate Democrats showed their true colors this week as 27 of them voted to block more than $675 million in weapons sales to Israel. This coming as talks between Israel and Hamas have broken down again, leaving both the U.S. and Israel to figure out how to rescue the remaining hostages. All right, let's discuss this. And we've got our foreign policy expert, Harley Lippman. There he is on the left, along with a retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel and president of Project Sentinel. That would be Tony Shaffer. So I'll start with you, Colonel. More than half of the Democrats in the Senate turned their backs on Israel, which always had bipartisan support, but not anymore.
It's a disappointing trend which has been significantly expanded over the past 3 years for whatever strange reason. Now, think about this. The Israelis are struck on the 7th of October by Hamas. You would think that the entire world, especially our own Democrats, would be for the ending of them, and they're not. It's beyond the pale. It makes absolutely no sense unless you recognize the political left, those who have taken over the Democrat Party, are fundamentally anti-Semitic. I'm just going to say it. There's no other way to explain it. That they have essentially sided with radical Islam for the most part, and that siding with radical Islam is now translating into the lack of support via policy for Israel. And I think it's something that everybody should recognize and keep track of during the midterms coming up here, because the Democrats are not on the side of righteousness and law and order.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little Dr. Seuss here. They're not, because they got a rot in that party, and their party is it's insane. You got Canada, too, though. Now they joined the UK and France. They're going to recognize a Palestinian state. Harley, why are they rewarding the terrorists?
Because in their misguided view, they are doing two things. They're watching the media at night, not Newsmax, unfortunately, and they're seeing night after night, they see poor Palestinian people starving and in terrible condition, and they're blaming Israel. And so the tragedy of this is that Israel is trying to feed them. You have the Gaza Humanitarian Fund that has given 10 million meals made up of American and Israeli civilians and business people who have one agenda: to feed the Palestinian people. And what these European countries are doing is prolonging starvation, prolonging war, and showing that they don't care about the Palestinians, because Hamas has walked away from the negotiating table. Why? Because they've been empowered by these European nations, and they think, hey, why should we make concessions to Israel if the Europeans could force Israel to do it on their own? They are doing things that are creating more war, more misery for the Palestinian people. So it's a double tragedy.
So the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, he spoke to us at Newsmax on Friday about why Hamas is continuing their obstruction and be just a major problem for the entire globe. Here's what he had to say.
That Hamas pulled away from all discussions is because they're watching the Europeans patting them on the back and giving them power and influence. That is not helpful, and it needs to stop. And the world needs to stand with Israel and say to Hamas, you're finished.
What's your take on that, Tony?
So he's completely correct. And to Harvey's point, the longer that this draws out, the more death, destruction, and pain there will be. And I don't know if Ambassador Huckabee went on to say this. The Europeans are supporting a death cult. Hamas is a death cult. They are out to end the Israeli state, even if that requires them to die. So, and the other thing they've done, they have monetized this support. Over the past almost 2 years, Rob, the Hamas terrorists have made almost $500 million. They have self-funded the continued terror against the Israelis and made their people suffer. They are not good stewards of anything. So at this point, I'd like to believe we need to convince the Europeans and the Canadians, for whatever reason, that eliminating Hamas as a political and terror organization must be done rapidly to stop the suffering and allow food to get to the people who need it.
I'm sure you guys saw the New York Times this week, the big front page photo. I mean, they cannot hold back their hate for Israel. So they published a photo, there it is, of an emaciated child that they claimed was starving because Israel wouldn't let food into the Gaza Strip, basically. And it turns out the child actually has a pre-existing condition, nothing to do with the famine. The whole story was basically a lie, and then, of course, they come up with a tiny little retraction, not on its 50 million following on X account, but on a 40,000 account. And you know, it's Hamas killing its own people. Meanwhile, you got the ambassador, Huckabee, of course, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff visited Gaza Friday to assess the humanitarian crisis there. President Trump also discussing it currently. And this is, let me just play what Trump had to say, and then we'll get reaction.
The United States gave $60 million for food. And it's a shame because nobody, you know, I don't see the results of it. And we gave it to people that in theory are watching over it fairly closely. We wanted Israel to watch over it. Part of the problem is Hamas is taking the money and they're taking the food. Nobody said thank you, but I didn't need the thank you. I just wanted the people to get fed.
So, Harley, you know, this is just, it's constant because the media is always twisting or coming up with its own narrative or listening to the, you know, Hamas side and taking that as fact. But also you got the United Nations playing along, the left-wing media and the Democratic Party nowadays. But that New York Times story, which got so much coverage and was so emotional, just, you know, right there, that picture is unfortunately, you can't unsee that.
No, you're exactly right. And this is a big part of this wave of anti-Semitism. Your guest, Tony, is spot on. You know, and what's so tragic about this is Hamas is stealing the food. Even the UN just recently finally admitted it. They're stealing the food, giving it to their own fighters, and then they're gouging the poor Palestinian people by charging huge amounts of money for it because they've run out of money. This is their biggest revenue producer. And when they were negotiating with Israel just recently, as even a few weeks ago, their number 2 demand was to get rid of the Gaza Humanitarian Fund because that's most threatening to them because whoever controls food controls Gaza. And they want to be able to control the people. So it's, you know, it's a death cult. It's ISIS, it's Al-Qaeda. It's even worse because even ISIS and Al-Qaeda wanted to kill the infidels. They don't want to kill their own people. The strategy of Hamas is to have as many Palestinians die as possible. They know they cannot defeat Israel militarily. So their only strategy is to have their own people die so that will gather support against Israel. That's how so evil this is. And people in the West just can't get beyond the anti-Semitism and the emotional reaction of seeing starving people, which is truly horrific and terrible. But they take no thought to why that is and who's doing it.
That's exactly right. Good to see you, Harley. Good to see you, Tony.